Hey, survivors. So last week was a little bit of a challenge for me. It was the first week of school that educators came back. And if you have been following the state of the education system at all, you know there's a lot going on. And so, as a school leader, I'm doing my best to support in any way that I can. But part of that for me requires that I step away from doing some of the things that I really enjoy most about working in a school and focus more on systems and structures and the management of the building. Additionally, I've already encountered some difficulties with the school team and the community. And I'm just, not in the headspace that I normally am in when I start off the school year. Those of you that have been following know that I've spent the last 3 sessions in the book of Nehemiah with you guys focusing on preparing to rebuild. Over the course of that time, we learned the importance of mourning what we lost, going to God and allowing Him to direct our path, seeking out wise counsel, going at it alone when necessary, and gathering the village when the time is right. I, of course, thought naturally that I'd be moving on into chapter 4 of the book of Nehemiah to talk about the opposition that Nehemiah faced in his rebuild. However, the Lord directed me to a different passage to help me to better understand the opposition that I am now facing in my rebuilding season. Let's take a look today at Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far out away from the land, for a strong wind had risen and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage. I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. "You are really the Son of God," they exclaimed. So that was Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. Okay, so here's a little context. In the verses that preceded those that I shared, Jesus has just performed one of his most famous miracles. He fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and there was leftovers. So all the people have gone home, and Jesus goes out to be alone with the Lord and pray. While he's praying, a storm begins to brew while the disciples are out in the middle of the water. And they call on Jesus. And of course, Jesus is Jesus. So he walks across the water and he's like, bam, here I am. And the disciples are completely shook, like they just saw a ghost, because of course, Jesus can't walk on water, especially in the middle of the storm. Like, that's completely ridiculous, right? Mind you, these are the same jokers that just watched homie feed the whole county with a Lunchable. See, that right there was my first reality check. I don't know about y'all, but my life is a complete miracle. I've had an up close and personal courtside seat to the signs and wonders in my life and in the lives of those around me. Yet, for some reason, when I'm in the midst of a storm, I've got my face twisted all up like the Lord can't and won't show up. Y'all, we are a complete trip. See, the problem is we call on the Lord and we want him to show up the way we want him to show up, like he needs our assistance. Y'all, God is God all by himself with no help from us. He doesn't need our direction. So then in the text, it tells us that Peter tells the Lord, if you're really God, if you're really Jesus, let me walk to you. And Peter starts walking on the water, real cool, like. Then he looks around and remembers that he's in the middle of a storm and that he's walking on water. And he starts flailing around and he gets scared like he's going to drown. And of course, Jesus grabs him up. Now, let that sit with you for a second. How many times have you called on God requesting that he draw you near, that he does something for you, and then you look around at your situation and freak out all over again like you haven't already given that thing over to him? Oh, is that just me? All right, cool, that's fine. But here's the thing. What I have to remember is that when I hand something over to God, I have to be prepared for him to work that thing out by any means. And while he's working it out, I got to keep my focus on him and not the foolishness that's going on around me, not the storm. I have to stay focused on God. Over the course of the last year, I've learned that I serve a by any means necessary type God. Like he literally has me covered regardless of the situation. And the wild part about that is that when he does what he does, sometimes things got to get messy first. The enemy was standing at the door, so we got to dig out through the basement. Jesus didn't say, Peter, I want to make you walk on water. Peter asked Jesus to do that. When we ask the Lord to show up and show out in our lives, we have to be prepared to receive him doing just that the way he does it. Too many times, like Peter, we're trying God. I dare you to make me walk on water, God, and then looking silly when it happens because we didn't think that it would. Or also like Peter, daring God to do something, looking around and thinking it's too good to be true, and then doubting that God can sustain what he started. As it relates to the rebuilding season, please understand that just because God stamped a rebuild doesn't mean that there won't be barriers. Just because Jesus gives Peter the ability to walk on water doesn't mean that the storm is going to automatically cease. The power in persevering through the inevitable opposition that you will face in a rebuild is keeping your eyes focused on the one who set the build in motion in the first place. If God set something in motion, you better believe that he's got the gas to get you to the destination. He ain't putting 5 in the tank and praying for no traffic. He's filling that thing up with premium. So let him do his thing, y'all. Well, that's all I got for today. Jesus, take the wheel. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time here on the Survival Guide.